students you're talking about, the students are all Gen Z. They are the future, right? They are not going to look back. And I have seen that in many people, they will talk from their times.
One subject you think you would like to delete, and one subject you think is very, very important and should be mandatory by now.
I think one subject that you can delete, and frankly speaking, looking at the cultural nuances that is taking place, how seamless the world has become, I think business communication is one course that we can probably adapt and bring it to a new level altogether.
Hi everyone, good morning. Joining us today is a dynamic academic leader who blends deep industry insights with over 2 decades of academic excellence. She's known for her commitment to shaping future-ready professionals, fostering innovation in marketing, education, and driving meaningful industry-academia collaboration. We're honored to welcome Dr. Sujata Khandai, Deputy Dean Academics and Director of Amity College of Commerce and Finance at Amity University, Noida. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. I would like to take a few more seconds to introduce a little bit more about you to our viewers and listeners today. Dr. Khandai began her career in the consumer durables industry before transitioning into academia, where she had taught and led in areas like consumer behavior, brand management, and service marketing. A prolific researcher, she has authored a book, contributed to several others, and published over 25 research papers. I'm sure they've increased by now. Her leadership is marked by a strong focus on empowering teams, enhancing employability, and ensuring global exposure for students. It's a privilege to have her with us today. Let's dive into the conversation full of insight and experience and inspiration. Welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Srishti, for the kind introduction.
So, how are you doing, ma'am, today? How are you?
I'm good, Srishti. Thank you so much. I'm in Paris today, so the weather is very nice. And I'm happy to be on your show. It is indeed an honor to be featured on your show. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Great, thank you so much. I'm privileged as well to have you here. I wanted to start up directly with the questions. I wanted to know, even in your introduction, I was reading that you were working for consumer behavior. How did you actually land up in academia?
Okay, this is way back in the 90s, and I was fresh out of business school, and where academia did not feature much in anybody's life as a career choice at that point of time, frankly speaking. So, fresh out of business school, I joined Bajaj Electricals, and I was directly working with Mr. Shekhar Bajaj, who was the CEO of Bajaj Electricals at that point of time. We were probably one of the first batch or the second batch of management trainees that they had inducted, and Mr. Shekhar Bajaj was taking a lot of interest in the management trainees. He wanted to group them to be the future CEOs, and he gave me, after the 6 months of mandatory training, he made me take charge. Bajaj Electricals was way ahead of its time. They launched the microwave oven way back in the 90s, early 90s, and he put me in charge of launching the microwave oven. So it was an excellent go. I thrived on doing that because I'm a more of a go-to person. Do it. I like doing stuff, rather than sitting and signing papers. So I really love that work. I got married and I had my first child, a son, in 1995. And let's talk, this was way back in 1995. And we didn't have much support then. It was a nuclear family. I was confused, and I wanted to take care of my son. I didn't want to let help take care of my son, and we did not have the kind of pressures that you have today. Did not exist at that point of time. I said I need to take care of my son. That's very important. That became my primary focus at that point of time. I was very clear, and I don't regret it even now. This is where I am today, and so I have absolutely no regrets. And I gave it up for 2 years. So today, if you see Tripti or Srishti, if you look at today, it's much easier to take a break, come back into the workforce, and it was not so then. If you took a break, you were like, you become anathema to the corporate world, and that's what happened. It was not possible. I did try, and then I said, okay, let me try academia. It was just that, academia was kind of a stop gap Frankly speaking, I'll be very honest. I like teaching. I liked interacting. As I said, I'm a very people person. I loved teaching. I loved being with students. I loved mentoring them. And that's the journey started. And then I said, okay, let me give a couple of more years and a couple of more years. And I went on to do my PhD. I went on to writing papers. And I am currently doing what I actually love doing. So there you are.
Well, destiny definitely takes you to what you love, and in the end, we are all very happy. And what a beautiful journey, ma'am. I think starting off with Bajaj is also like a really big thing, and then getting like your first marketing gig must have been really exciting about launching the microwave, and we still use it today. Like there
Yeah.
are many families that use that microwave today. So I'm sure every time you go back, you see, you would be like, oh, this is something that I launched.
Yes, of course.
Great. I think it's an exciting journey, ma'am. But once you were into the academia, once you were teaching, mentoring students, you were happy. Was becoming a dean your dream? Like, was it a plot twist, or just like it happened, so you took the opportunity, or was it like an actual dream of yours?
Srishti, not really. It is never a dream. You start out by being an academic, you start teaching. And I told you also, I love being with students, being with them, talking to them, mentoring them. What's something which I thrive on actually, even today. And that's why I'm 50 plus, but still, you're still young because you are still dealing with 18-year-olds, 21-year-olds,
You definitely don't look 50 plus, so let's not age numbers here.
It is not, but then I'm just saying that that's how. So I've always thrived on being with students. So yeah, I started as an academic, and then when I was at ILM Lodi Road, I was handed over. I was asked to take over the responsibility of an associate dean of students, and there the journey began. Actually, till that time I was purely an academic, and then my administrative role began, and then I went on to head institutions, and then I came to Amity, and then I was, I became, I was given I took over the role of deputy in academics, and then eventually I started handling two institutions in addition to my role as a deputy in academics. I headed the Amity College of Commerce and Finance, and then I headed the Amity School of Business. So I think it has a lot to do with how much you thrive being with students, how much you thrive being on the floor rather than, as I said, signing documents or making policy changes. That's very important because, but we are kind of giving food for policy changes. Policy changes cannot happen with us because we are the information givers. We work with the students. So it's not a plot twist, or it was never a dream, but it just happened because that's who I am. That's what I like doing, being with students always.
Great. I think in the interviews or discussions so far, this is very interesting that it wasn't even a dream or wasn't even a plot twist. Um, Very interesting. I just wanted to ask you one more question, and then I'll ask Tripti ma'am to take over. I think this you both will relate to a lot, and coming from like so diverse and reputed fields, both of you. One question would be, how was your first day in office of a dean versus now? Like, what has changed besides your like email or inbox or your role as administrative? What has changed?
My first day as a role as a dean as of now, okay, I became the dean at Amity University, right? So yes, one of course is that it's Amity University is huge, it's big, okay, and it continues to be big. It is probably one of the biggest. It is the biggest private university in India right now. The first day is daunting as a dean because you really don't know. You are full of dreams, as you say. You have a lot of ideas in your head. This is what I want to do. But let's not forget, we are entering into a space where Amity University, because of its hugeness, it has a structure which works well for it, right? And so you have to work with the structure. You have a lot of processes in place. A university like that cannot work. So you have your dreams, but you also know that these dreams, and you have your plans, and you have a lot of ideas, but you know that these have to work with the structure, with the processes, and sometimes sometimes it gets daunting. You're not able to do it. You're not able to put your dreams into action because these structures kind of you think. And eventually today, when I look back and I say, okay, those structures are what actually made my dreams come true. At that time, it may have looked daunting, but today I realize that these are structures, and I learn. And now, because we are in that position, we are able to make changes. We are more adaptable today, and let's not forget, we're dealing with the Gen Z. The Gen Z is a very, very different ball game compared to the earlier generations, even the millennials. You have to change, you have to shift your focus, you have to adjust, calibrate your mind completely to deal with the Gen Z. They are very different. I admire them, I like them. Many people have a lot of thoughts not very nice about them, but I really like the Gen Z. I admire them, and I think they will take the world to a better place. So these are structures, but at this point of time, I think Amity is also very flexible. It's very adaptable, and we have, because we were in that position, we were able to make the changes, adapt the processes, to live in this new world that we are living in today. So that's how it is. It has been my journey over the years.
Dr. Sujata, I think thank you so much, Rishti, for taking up such interesting question. And it's so good to know, Dr. Sujata, inside out, specifically the part of being working in a corporate and then joining an institution is a different world altogether. I think there are rules, there are different kind of limitations. I would like to know, Dr. Sujata, that if imagine there are no rules and red tapes and or budgets, what will be the first thing you would redesign in your institution? Specifically, because coming from a corporate lifestyle, working with the founders, and then coming to an institution which has a lot of if and then and rules. Yes.
Yeah, okay, so it's really not very different, Tripti. I think the world outside has a lot of things that the corporate is very different from academia. It probably is in what we do, but in how we do it, I think there's not much difference, because running such a large organization like Amity, it has its own structures, it has its own processes, it has its own frameworks. Without that, we would not be able to function. Without that, we would not be able to deliver the quality education that we're delivering, right? So it's just the mission that varies. The mission of an corporate is quite different from the mission that an educational institution has. Apart from that, okay, let me tell you something. I have potential, candidates who come to me for faculty recruitment. I sit on the boards of when I recruit faculty, and a lot of them who come to me and tell me that we are joining academia because the working hours are less, because the pressure is less, because I will get a lot of time to look after my children. I immediately back off and I say, no, that's not who we want. We want somebody probably who's 100% more committed than even, who would give much more time than even when you give in the corporate. Trust me, we are dealing with students. We are dealing with the future generation of this country. This is a generation which will take our country to the next level, right? And if I'm going to say that I'm going to work lesser number of hours, or I'm going to go back home and forget about my students, that's not how it's going to work. So I think the commitment level when you work in academia is probably much, much more than when you are in corporate. In corporate, you go back home, you can forget what you did. You can kind of switch off and say, okay, this is my home.
Yeah, you were changing, you were actually contributing to the future of the country. So
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I can understand how you feel, because when I'm interviewing, and I somehow am quite straightforward and ask that if you were planning to work, what is 9 to 5? Are you some limitations, travel limitations? Completely agree, and so true that when it comes to education institution, even there it's not 9 to 5. It's something where and with the kind of scope and technology, the kind of scope, the way the education system, the thought process is changing, I think it has a lot to do once you go back. So with this, Dr. Sujata, one one subject, you've been into the institution for such a long time, and we know there are some areas which somehow we see in future after graduating, post graduation, they were not relevant in real life. So what is
Mhm.
one subject you would like to delete? I know you have to be very sure what you're speaking, but it's on a lighter note. One subject you think you would like to delete, and one subject you think is very, very important and should be mandatory by now.
Okay, yeah. I think one subject that you can delete, and frankly speaking, looking at the cultural nuances that is taking place, looking at the way we have become digitized, how seamless the world has become. I think business communication is one course that we can probably adapt and bring it to a new level altogether. It does not work, It is not like I write dear so and so, and it does not work that way anymore. We have become so digitized. The formality that existed in the past, I'll give you an example. I tell everybody to call me by my first name only. Even I'm okay with my students calling me a first name. That world where we were extremely formal in communicating does not exist now. The world is more nuanced. There is a lot of cross cultural element does not enter our business communication at all. We do not teach. In fact, instead of, okay, fine, that basic model is there, but beyond that, I think we our students are working in a globalized world today. Are we teaching them how to operate in Spain, or how to work in France, or how to work in Colombia? We are not, right? That's something which should enter business communication. It has to become much more nuanced. It has to bring in the cross cultural elements into it. It has to be more dynamic, and it has to be more digital. That's something which is very, very, I think, in my opinion. Yeah, and the course that has to be, it is a given, right? It is a no-brainer. AI, artificial intelligence. I'm not saying artificial intelligence will take away our jobs. It will not. Frankly speaking, it will not. But a lack of knowledge of artificial intelligence will definitely ensure you are unemployable. That's what is going to happen. So AI in everything, whether it is marketing, HR, finance, anything that you speak of, you need to have that knowledge of AI. At my age, I am learning AI. I'm learning how to use AI. I started with ChatGPT, but
Right.
I'm learning more and more tools. So AI is very mandatory, I
I am so happy that you spoke about it. And with this, I would say, and to our audience, that yes, AI is very important. It's something which you should know, and you should know how to use in your favor in
think.
terms of, but then whenever you're using AI, the first ideas have to be pinned down by you. I know now there are prompt which can give you ideas about what you should write, but I think
Yes.
the ideas have to be put across, and then they can help you in the grammar, in making it fancy, look more empathic, and all that flavor can be added, but your original mindset is required. AI is today for automizing your monotonous job, not to replace you from
E-
decision making. So
Exactly.
yeah, you're right, Dr. Sujata. It is so relevant, but in the right way.
Yeah.
And with this, I would ask you that I think with like we were discussing before, that how this community leadership also plays a very important role, Dr. Sujata, in people's life. We have seen in COVID that people were not able to arrange, even with the means of money, were not able to arrange fund, your cylinders and all. And that was an eye opener, that although maybe ministry were not updated with information, but the local communities, they were there on ground helping each other. So yes, as we are moving towards AI, we also have to move towards community leadership, physical conferences, physical touch, one-to-one interaction, so that in this beautiful world we are always have someone by our side. Yes, and with this, Dr. Sujata, community leadership course is something which we have designed specifically to bring community together, collaboration, and working with different colleges to keep including that in their syllabus. Dr. Sujata, if I say today, getting engagement from people is a difficult task. I go to different colleges, and when you're speaking, you have audience, or if you're online, the videos are off. What is your ramban? आपका क्या ramban है to make sure when you're speaking, when you're talking, there is a engagement which is happening?
Uh, Okay. See, it's like this. Again, so when I talk to the students you're talking about, the students are all Gen Z. They are the future, right? They are not going to look back. They're going to look ahead, right? Don't expect, and I have seen that in many people, they will talk from their times. I can talk from my time. The student, he or she is not interested in looking backwards. He has to look front. They are the future. We are the past, in that way, if I say. So we have to look into the future. You have to speak of something which is relevant to them. Relevance is very, very important. You speak of something which is not relevant to them, they're going to switch off. Let's not forget they have a very short attention span. So you have to talk about things which matter to them, the current events, their real life problems. We can use pop culture to reach out to them, to engage with them. And then I think that's one thing also I say, there's something called passive listening and something called active listening. There's something which I always quote in the class whenever I'm addressing somebody. I tell my students, get out of the mode of passive listening and listen actively. That is what is going to, the moment you listen actively, that means you have to be engaged. To ensure that they listen actively, I have to be relevant. So it is not a one-way traffic. It is not that they will just they will just switch on from a passive listening to an active listening just because I said so. They will do that. They will switch from that mode of passive to active listening only if I am speaking of something which is relevant to them. Otherwise they're not going to do it. And secondly, give them a choice. Let them choose what they want to do. Let them choose what they want to listen to. So these are things which are very important, I think. Otherwise, student engagement in these times,
Yeah, luxury. It is luxury.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
luxury. It's because let's not forget, we created social media, which has become a monster today. It's social media which has, look at Instagram. Instagram kind of reduces your concentration to a few seconds. You're
Yeah.
changing reels one after the other. You don't have to remember at all.
Yes.
Instagram makes you not, forces you not to remember. You are not supposed to remember anything because
Yeah,
you
I
are.
remember डॉक्टर सुजाता कि पहले हम लोग मूवीज देखते थे तो हमको उसका नाम याद रहता था, एक्टर का नाम याद रहता था, मूवी में क्या हुआ और क्या उस पर डिस्कशंस भी होते थे. अब तो हम शायद एक मिनट में 3 मूवीज की ग्लिम्स और क्या हीरो और हु इज
We
इट्स ऑल
don't.
कंट्री मिस. या.
Thanks to Instagram, it keeps on, keep on, the surfing, one reel after the other, one reel after the other. You don't need to remember what happened in the previous reels. I don't know. It's
So, Dr. Sujata, if I say if we go back to your childhood and if you go back a few years back, like 20 years back, and you have to tell your younger self or maybe a 16 years old you, what would you advise and say that would like to change or not change? What will be your communication with yourself?
two things actually, very, very interestingly. Two things. One is be very adaptable and learn. Constantly keep learning. And I'm very fortunate again, probably, and plus the profession that I joined, academia that I entered into, both have probably made me both over the years, be very adaptable and keep learning. In academia, you have to constantly keep learning. We are doing research, and that's the reason we keep learning. And you have to be adaptable. Today, if you're not adaptable, this world will, race past you, and you will be left way behind. So these are two things which I think is very, very important. And to anybody, even today, I would say these two things really matter. Continuous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
continuity and adaptability. I think that is very, very important. And I always keep talking about 3 C's: continuity, community, and collaboration, which has
Collaboration.
become very, very important in today's world because instead of creating something new, you can also collaborate and recreate things.
Exactly.
Like we talk about why waste. With this, Dr. Suchata, what are your views on our young girls? I mean, we see a lot of females coming to the college but not converting into work.
Mhm.
How is your college contributing to us, and how are you handling such situation?
Okay, so if you look at the enrollment ratio and the male-female enrollment ratio, you will find that maybe 10 years back, there would be 30% girls and 70% boys. And I am talking of premier institutions where and I'm talking of institutions where the a higher socio-economic, the students who come are from a higher socio-economic class, right? Even there, you'd be surprised that there are only 30% girls, and that effectively means that even in families who belong to the upper echelons of society, even they prefer, or they put more their money into boys getting educated and not girls getting educated, when you have a 30-70 ratio. Today I see the ratio has improved drastically. It is about 45%, but even 45%, I would say it should be, it's alarming. When I was doing my MBA, in a class of 60, we were just about 6 girls. That's in the 90s, right? That's alarming, isn't it? Today, of course, I think every B school also focuses a great deal on enrollment ratio with boys to girls. But yeah, I think what we do is that, one is that you have to provide a very equitable place on campus. There should be no bias. We give a lot of let's not forget, we are in an urban milieu, right? We are working in an urban environment. Having said that, it's very important that every woman is empowered to give her voice, to voice her thoughts. We kind of encourage them. We have girls, a lot of girls who come from small towns, not villages, I would say, but tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities also. These are the ones who we actually encourage. These are the female students we actually encourage. We empower them. We kind of help them embrace their strengths, and we give them confidence. We give them courage. We give them a purpose to dream and to own their dreams also. And that means basically that the education that we provide is not only extremely inclusive. We give a lot of real world exposure, and we also ensure that we kind of encourage them to adopt leadership positions. Okay, I'll tell you how we do that. So for instance, I have conferences. We regularly host a lot of big conferences. In these large international conferences, we kind of encourage students who come from tier 2, tier 3 cities, the female students who come from tier 2, tier 3 cities, to take up positions where they will lead the team in conducting the conference and organizing the conference. So in that way, we can't tell them, okay, you are strong, you do this. But by putting them into roles, by putting them into positions where they lead, that's how they kind of find their voice. That's how they find their strengths, and that's how they kind of find their purpose too.
I think that's very interesting. I think today, when we talk about labor force participation ratio, this is the problem. We have a great literacy rate now. Instead, I've seen cases in media wherein the 100 girls are sitting and one guy is got fainted after seeing. So I think when it comes to literacy, we have done great. There's a great wonders and improvement in the percentage. Problem happens when the conversion to workforce is when you are self-employed, you go back home, you're getting married, you're leaving the job, or you have kids and you have to manage it alone. I think what are your views on it? How do you think currently Women Waiter is running a program, Dr. Sujata, where we are actually working with colleges to maintain the data of conversion of female labor force, and then counseling those females in why, not only just females but their family members as well, to ensure that and to the extent the husband, why they should ensure that the woman is working for the peace of mind. Because today it's not about earning money, it's also about a peace of mind, your holistic wellness, which happens when you're meeting more and more people in the community. If you're restricted to home, you're restricted to caretaking, automatically it changes your nature overall. And women somehow have empathy, have multitasking attribute, which can be used in the corporate very well. So Dr. Sujata, this is one part, but another part which is coming in alarming is the new generation's fast moving nature. Not going in detail, how is your college and how you as a person foresee, and what would you like to suggest our audience? What are the things they have to keep in mind, and stop themselves or keep their nature attributes in place?
Okay, so basically, what I understand is you're talking about the female participation into workforce, right? How do we encourage, or how do we ensure that this translates the education that the girl students, the women students are getting, it translates into actual their workforce participation and thereby contribution to GDP. That's what That's the exact answer you want, right?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So it's like this. So we teach them the first. Our step is not only our role as educators is not just, and I always say this to all my faculty members and to my colleagues always, that we have a larger role to play. It is not just about teaching. It is about. It is not just about giving lectures in class. It is about molding the future generation of the country and the world. And thereby it also includes that the this future generation includes a big chunk of, a 50% chunk should be women only. Now, the point is that these women have to be encouraged that not only do you study, you earn a degree, but you use that degree to go and earn money, and by doing that you contribute to the GDP. Now, one is that okay, so it's like this. Most of the women who don't go for two reasons. They don't enter the workforce for two reasons. One is either family compulsions, that is one. Second reason, which I think is lack of confidence. They're not really confident, and I'm not talking of the tier 1 city students, from girls from tier 1 cities. I'm talking of from tier 2, tier 3 cities. They probably don't have they don't possess the necessary confidence to be able to join the workforce and contribute meaningfully at their workplaces. Now, this is where I think we need to impart them in those 3 4 years, 3 years or 2 years that they are with us. We need to impart them with the necessary level of confidence in them, through competence, and tell them that, look, you can do it, and offer them skill building in all the courses, whether it's finance. For instance, we have tied up with ACCA, we have tied up with CA, and we kind of encourage more of our students to undertake these courses. You are a chartered accountant yourself. A lot of our girl students, they go into courses, they do ACCA embedded courses with us, the BCom embedded with ACCA and the BCom embedded with CA. And that's how they build their confidence, which are traditionally these have been traditionally male dominated fields, but we encourage our girls to enter. Second is that give them voice and give them visibility. The moment you give them voice, the moment you give them visibility, they kind of realize that, yes, this is what I need to do and this is what I should be doing. And when we are giving them voice and visibility, showcase female role models. Tell them all about women who have done remarkably well in academia, women who have done remarkably well in corporate, remarkably well in politics, and tell them this is who you can become. I
And I
have to.
think the story behind, because everyone comes with a lot of struggle. I think people like
Yes.
us also, it wasn't easy because we also have to go through a lot of things, but we keep that smile on the face. We make sure we are doing it. We have that aspiration to, never say no and go for it. So yeah, you're right. I think Dr. Sujata, it's so important. So I think now I'll take you through some quick questions, more fun questions, and is imagine that you are, you've been asked to go to jungle right away, and you've been asked to carry only two things with you. What will that two things will be for you to be a fittest survivor at the jungle, Dr. Sujata?
So I'm presuming there'll be nothing in the jungle. So I'll probably carry two things. One is a compass and one is a bottle of water. I think these two things are very important. I think.
Wonderful, wonderful. When I was asked this question, I said definitely knife and a matchstick to
Okay,
fire.
that's also yes. I would
Yeah,
say a compass because I'm very bad with directions. I need to get
correct.
my out of the jungle. So yes, a compass which will help me get out of the jungle, and water because I cannot
Right.
survive. I die without water.
True. I think with this, I would like to say that audience, I think it's a very great advice. Always carry your water bottle. Always keep drinking a lot of water because that reflects on yourself as you grow old. My second question is, what's one myth of academic institution which you would like to, of higher education, you would like to bust?
That academic institutions are very boring places to work in. Trust me, it's not. And they're very easy places to work in. Trust me, it's not. They are
Right.
very
Right.
exciting, and it is very challenging to work there.
Dr. Sujata, finish the sentence. The future of education is
Dynamic, adaptable, and challenging.
wonderful. I think, what's the boldest idea you wish more institution would adapt or adopt?
I think virtual classrooms, something
Yes.
which we connect all the global universities together, and because we live in a seamless world today, I think let's connect all the universities together, bring them all together, and get and learn from the best. So if we can have this, a dream. It's not going to happen. I hope it happens, but
It
it
will
is.
happen, Dr.
Yeah,
Sujata, because education anywhere from for anyone is what should be our goal. And why just because I'm sitting in Leh and Ladakh, I can't attend a Harvard class? I
exactly.
am doing it, and
Yeah.
why not? We all institution may we will save a lot of our inconvenience infrastructure costs if that could happen. And I know a lot of startups who have started doing this. But yes, when it comes to physical, the only limitation is you're not making friends, you're not making those
Exactly.
relationships, which
Right.
definitely is the need of the hour. Yeah. One student phrase that lives rent free in your head always.
Live your life.
Wow. Right. So true.
Live your life
It
to
is
the
too short.
maximum,
It is
and
too
don't,
short.
yes, and don't regret anything. So when I say don't regret, it means make informed choices so that you don't have to regret. But yes, live your life to the fullest.
Which book or a movie you relate to or you love? Any dialogues? Any song?
Okay. I'm very old fashioned in this way, but I will always go back to Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. The last sentence she says, "Tomorrow is another day." So that's something I live by. When Scarlett O'Hara, everything she had lost, she loses everything because of her choices, because of her willfulness. But she still stands strong and she says, "Tomorrow is another day." So, yes, I live my life by that. Tomorrow is another day.
So, Dr. Sujata, do you remember any of your childhood, thing wherein you went very rebellious and you wanted to do something, and even if everyone stops you, and any such experience over the
No, not really an experience. I will quote Robert Frost. When he said that, and I have always actually, I have faced a lot of challenges. Plus, I also have had I have had very, very progressive parents who have let me do what I wanted to do. So that's probably my path has been pretty clear that way. I have never had challenges. When I gave up my job also, for 2 to 3 years, to take care of my son, I never took it as a deterrent. So I would really quote Robert Frost here when I say the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have miles to go before I sleep. And that's what I go by. I would like to do a lot. It is not that I have done this much and that's enough. I would like to do much more. I would like to do many different things actually. And thanks to academia, I am doing a lot of different things. I teach, I write, I consult, I take training programs. I'm also an administrator. So the diversity of roles that I perform is nice. I like it. I love doing what I'm doing. And you were mentioning about stuff that you do, and I was going to tell you, take me pro bono. I will do a lot of work with you. I don't mind.
we will come we will come jumping to you, Dr. Sujata, for that,
Um,
because
yeah.
I think what we are trying to achieve in Womenovator needs millions of people, because today normally organization they will make a chapter. We don't do that. We say you come as a leader, you create that difference in your area, but there can be another 5 leaders in that area and do the same job, because the people who need support are a lot in number, and the people who want to give are very few in number.
No, I would love to
So
do mentor. I have been mentoring
yes,
my students. I would love to mentor. This is a thing very close to my heart. I
right.
would love to do that. So I was going to tell you, take me. I don't mind doing it pro bono. It's all right. There's everything cannot be equated with money, and everything need not be equated with money always. Actually, frankly
Right.
speaking.
The most unintentionally hilarious student email that you have ever received?
Okay. That would probably have to do with either he was late for his class and he could not get attendance, or maybe he could not submit his assignment on time, right? So we have usually nowadays, because we want to save paper, we don't want to waste paper. In view of protecting the environment, I ask all my students to submit their assignments, email their assignments and email their presentations to me, right? So there was one student, and I'm very particular about deadlines. So if it is 11:59 on 16th of June, it is 11:59 on 16th of June. That's about it. So even if somebody emails it to me at 12:01, I don't accept it. And that's the beauty of accepting assignments on email, right? So there was this one student who emailed it to me at about 12:10 or something like that the next day, and it was late. I said, no, I'm not accepting, and that had 20% component. That assessment was 20%, and he was a good student, and he was desperate, and he was like, no, ma'am, please accept it. I said, no, I'm not going to accept it. Ma'am, you don't know. I had real problems at home. I was like, okay, what were the real problems at home? So he was like, and this is a boy, okay, and he's a good boy. I mean, all the kids are good, right? And he's like, no, ma'am, you don't know. There was a party going on at home, and I have a small kid brother, and I had to take care of my kid brother, and my kid brother would not let me go. He wanted me to tell him a story, and to keep him quiet and to make him sleep. I was telling him a story, and I forgot the time, and that's why by the time he slept, it was 12 o'clock, and after that only I could email my assignment, and I found it not hilarious, but I found it very cute. If he was telling the truth, I don't know if he was telling the truth. I am a person who will believe what you tell me. I don't, until unless you give me reason to disbelieve you, I will not disbelieve you. But yeah, it was charming, cute, and it was a little hilarious that you had to take care of your 2-year-old brother because he would not sleep and you forgot to mail your assignment. I did accept it. That's a different matter. But yeah, this was how it
I
is.
think that also covers my next question, which I wanted to ask. What was the oddest excuse someone had given for missing a deadline? Because I remember my college days, and one of my classmates did this to me, and she also told me, like, it's some kind of a winning hack, and that if next time if you do this, you will be saved, like that. Um, I was in my master's, and I was really, really, really scared for no absolute reason of my thesis guides. Both of them very, very poised, very strict, very learned professors, and very punctual also. And punctuality is not my strong suit. So I always was very scared. I used to do things in time, but when we were discussing in a group, one of my friends comes and says, oh, I did not submit the assignment last night. I just emailed and didn't attach a copy, and said, oh, I forgot to attach a copy, and sent it to me. Next morning, I had 8 hours extended work to do. And I was like, okay. And soon after, like 2 days, when the assignments were getting marked, and we got a list of internals and externals, and she saw that she was not marked, and she went and talked to the professors, and she said, I mentioned it to you, and this and that. And the teacher said that there has not been anything, so we will not mark you. So that's about it. Yeah.
So I think, Dr. Strata, it was really nice having you, and I would say that thanks to all the listeners out there for the patient listening, and we will be back with more and more deans and their dreams and the story behind, which has always been. Everyone's thought process. What makes you dean, and how you reach to that journey of being a dean? It's a small four-letter word, but there's a huge huge efforts which have been in place. There are multiple stories of failure and success which you hear from us. So thank you once again, Dr. Sujata, for such a wonderful conversation. And my only request would be to tell us about one thing which you noticed in all your students who became successful. What was similar? What was few characteristic you found in most?
See, one of the very common traits, and I find when everybody, not only the students but everybody, is uh, people who become really successful world over globally. And I would say that to my students also when I mentor them and I talk to them, is one common trait is they take initiative. You need to take, number one, take initiative, step up, and third is excellent communication, and fourth is empathy. These are the four things which are very, very important. If you don't learn to take initiative, and when I say take initiative, that means you are prepared to take the risks also with the initiative. You need to bear the risk, shoulder the risks. and the responsibility. So I think that's extremely important. And when you take the risk, and take the initiative, it means you're stepping up. You need to step up always. If you don't step up, you will not get to where you want to get to.
You're so right, Dr. Sujata, because in real life, while interviewing also and while seeing our employees and working with us, we've seen people who come themselves and take those initiatives are always very close to us. And also, like you said, the risk. It's not that when you are being employed, you are not taking risk. You should take risk. I think you should take more risk because you have a fixed cost on your table. So with this, I would say that Dr. Sujata, it is always said there is always a guru who guides you, who mentors you. There are people who come in your life who mentor you. Would you like to take a few names who have shaped up your life, or you would like to thank them? Because I think today gratitude has become a big thing, and expressing somewhere Indians we are always lacking behind. But would love to hear from you, Dr. Sujata, as a last question. And of course, would like to thank all of them who have shaped up your future. And we are lucky to have you today with us.
A few people, let me name them. Four exactly. Unfortunately, okay, let me take four names. My dad, first and foremost, because there's one thing which he taught me, which has really made me who I am today. He taught me the power of empathy. He said, always, whenever you are taking a decision which is going to harm somebody, which may harm somebody or just put yourself in that person's position and think about what would you do if it were you in that position. So that's really played very well for me, and kind of helped me take the right decisions always. The second is, I would say, one of my professors, Professor Govind Rajan, when I was at XIMB. He was one of the major, he influenced me probably when I took to academia and started teaching marketing. He has been my biggest influence so far. And publicly, I have always acknowledged it, and I'm acknowledging him once again. Also, I would say I respect, admire greatly our founder, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan. He's somebody who has probably mentored me in his own way into who I am today, and the kind of decisions that I take. I am greatly indebted to him for that. He has made me who I am and in my decision making. And last but not the least, I used to be a very bad researcher, not a great one. And thanks, I would not say today India has become very good when it comes to research, but not when I was doing my PhD. We learned through trial and error. I would like to also thank one of my colleagues who is younger than me. But I met him a few years back. He's Dr. Ivan Zupic from Goldsmiths, University of London. He actually taught me how to do research. He actually taught me to pay attention to details and how to go about it. So these four people have probably shaped me who I am over the years. Over the years, as I would say, some as recent as 4 years back. Some, my dad, of course, from the very beginning. So,
thank you so much, Dr. Sujata. And that brings my energy back. And I keep telling people why mentors are very important, whether personally or professionally. They play a very important role, because your problem may sound like 100 times bigger, but with one advice, it may sound like a very minimal issue. But I think we forget to do that. And so, to our lovely audience, keep getting two mentors. Don't just think about professionally, but personally. And thanks to all the beautiful mentors who have shaped up Dr. Sujata's life. Govind sir, your father, Dr. Ashok, and of course your research professor who has guided you. And definitely, you're right, research plays a very important role today to shape up our country's future too. With this, thank you so much, Dr. Sujata, for your time, and thank you so much for waking up so early in Paris to be there on this call with us, on this discussion, beautiful discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Sujata.
Thank you.
I think this brings us to an end. Thank you once again, Dr. Sujata. I will say hi to you on a personal message, and we'll be in touch, and definitely looking forward to meet you in person.
I would love to work with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.